for our next speaker. Our next speaker is a seasoned Toastmaster, Mr. Ian Black. The title of his speech is called All Is Not Doom and Gloom. And his speech this morning is an encouraging speech to show us all that all is not bad in the news, as the news tells us. If we take a larger view, life is actually improving on a daily basis. This is a feel-good speech about some of these improvements, and I think it's a perfect time to hear a speech like this. Please help me welcome the always entertaining and charismatic Mr. Ian Black.
Three bodies turn up at a mortuary, all with very big smiles on their face. First body, Frenchman. Well, he died of heart failure while making love to his lover, his mistress, hence the big smile on his face. The second body, Scotsman. 25, he won £1,000 and spent it all on whiskey. Talking about spirits. Died of alcohol poisoning, hence the smile. So the inspector asked, well, what about the third body? Well, says the coroner, that is the most unusual one. Donald Trump, President of the United States, struck by lightning. Oh, why is he smiling then? Inquired the inspector. Well, he thought he was having his picture taken. Madam Toastmaster, fellow communicators, and welcome guests, Juan and Elizabeth. How many of you think that the world is getting better? How many of you think that the world is getting worse? All right. Well, I've been feeling a bit uneasy about this loose cannon for President Donald Trump, and how he's been basically dismantling the democracy that the last 8 years that Barack Obama had been carefully nurturing. And I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling a little bit of despair about this wonky president. I've turned all my tabs around. In a recent survey, all things considered, it was asked, what do you think of the world getting better or worse, or neither getting better or worse? It was a pretty broad survey around the world. In Sweden, 10% thought things were getting a little better. The United States, that was only 6%. And in Germany, only 4%. So it's a pretty pessimistic view. The world is people feeling a little not comfortable with what's going on. It's no surprise that the general public is pessimistic about this because of course, we're all bombarded by a lot of negative news. You don't seem to see any positive news. You sort of see TV anchor people sort of holding onto a tree, racing against some hurricane. They've got to go and stand in a hurricane. You know, they've got to terrify us all. But nobody's talking about the good stuff. Nobody's talking about anything that's happened that is of the positive. Not very much anyhow. Well, it's not all doom and gloom. And of course, the world is not static. A balanced perspective for me helps when I take a larger view of where we are and where we've come from. So I was born in 1944. My dad was born in 1901, and his father was born in 1864, and his father in 1828. So that's my great-grandfather, 1828, in Nova Scotia. But in 200 years, a lot of things have changed. Now this is a period, this is a series of graphs that I came upon, and I thought this would be interesting to talk about. And this represents the world as it were 100 people. It's an interesting way of condensing it down. And this is the period of time from my great-grandfather all the way through. This dotted line is my birth, and this is my father's birth. And that's significant for me, because I looked at those things and I thought, my goodness, look at that. Look at extreme poverty as an example. Well, researchers measure extreme poverty at living in less than $1.90 a day. Not a lot of money. And let's assume that these researchers done their homework coming to that figure. And this is what they've established what's happened over the last couple of hundred years. Well, in 1820s, you can see only 6% of the people had a good life. It was really a lot of people, but it has changed since then. And we are now in a position where, in fact, only 10 people, 10% are living in extreme poverty. That's an extreme shift. And you can see that from my father's time, not a lot changed. And even from when I was born, but then it really, really made a difference. I mean, in the 1800s, the conditions were such that only 43% of the newborn children ever survived to 5. Ooh, that's almost half. That's a pretty low percentage. Let's look at the democracy that Donald Trump is threatening. Well, in 1820, there was only 1%. 1% that were living under democracy. It was really a small number. Well, now we're up to 56, and it is improving. Even though he's nibbling at it, it's still improving. Obviously, when we look at literacy, that had a lot to do with it. You can see what happened. It went up, and then, of course, it took a little dip with the war. But nevertheless, those things have improved. And now with literacy at 85%, and the ubiquitousness of the smartphone, it actually will even close that gap even more. So there is reasons to be optimistic. When we take a larger view of what the world is about and where we've come from, considering that all of our human history backwards is not going to be increasing anymore, that all of this is really developed over the last really 60, 70 years, where the really radical shifts have happened. We're living in a pretty good time. And we don't have a lot of excuses to be negative. But I wanted to encourage you with one closing thought. Microsoft is testing an earbud. These are the Apple versions of them. They're just little things like that that just fit in your ear like that. Simple as that. Just simple little like that. It's got the little signal. Simultaneous, instant, real-time translation. The ability to face somebody and speak to them. It's connected to your iPhone, and when they speak to you in their language, you hear it in your language. And that is right on the cusp right now. And if you think of all the miscommunications that have happened in the world, and all the wars that have happened by just a slight, imagine having face-to-face, simultaneous, real-time translation. It could end war forever.
All right.